A very good afternoon to all of you. So I hope that whatever we have discussed yesterday, everything is clear. So in yesterday's lecture, we have discussed the functions of attitude. Why an individual tend to hold a certain attitude. Okay? So for the last time, let me just again help you to organize your content in a way that when we talk about an attitude, you have an attitude holder and you have an attitude object. So whenever you are confused between values and attitude, just try to understand that value is a general determinant of your behavior, but attitude is a specific determinant. So attitude would not be there until and unless you have the attitude object. You can have values, SAB. Peace is a value, honesty, integrity, courage is a value, right? Patriarchy is a value, bureaucracy, democratic values, they are the set of values. But whenever we talk about attitude, along with the person who's holding the attitude, it is very important that there has to be some attitude object towards which the attitude would be held. Is that very clear? Okay. And that attitude object can be anything. It can be a person, it can be an event, it can be an object, it can be an idea, anything for that matter. Is that very clear for everyone? So whenever we talk about attitude, there has to be a presence of two aspects. One, the person who is holding the attitude, and another is the object towards which the attitude is held. Is that very clear? Okay. And you are holding a certain attitude, it means that that attitude is serving some function for you. Is that very clear? Okay. And when I say that it is serving some function for you, that means either it is fulfilling your need, and need is always to maximize your rewards and to minimize your punishment. Here rewards can vary. Rewards can be social rewards, spiritual reward, economic rewards, political rewards, cultural rewards, anything. But the need is every individual, irrespective of what is your thought process. Everyone intends to maximize their reward and minimize their punishment. So if by holding a certain attitude, you are maximizing your rewards, you will continue to hold that attitude. The day you believe that that attitude no longer is enabling you to maximize your reward, you will abandon the attitude. Is that very clear? Okay. And if I have to change this attitude, which is based on your need function, then either I have to change your need only, or I have to suggest you an alternative attitude which will serve your existing need better. And I have already given you examples here. Is that clear? Then we discuss the knowledge function. See, many a times you hold the attitude not because it is serving a need. It is because it is helping you to understand the complex realities of life. For example, you were confused that why in India everyone is obsessed with fair complexion. अगर देखा जाए तो the original inhabitants of Indian subcontinent has always been on the darker side. Then why are we so obsessed with fair complexion? Why are we so obsessed with English language? English language no longer is just the means of communication. It has become the means of status in the society. If you are fluent with English, that is something to be boast about. No one cares what content is, what is the aspect or the content or the nature of your conversation. What matters is in which language the conversation is happening. So if you have sound English, if you have fluent English, then you not only acquire as in proficiency, but also the status in the society. And specifically in context of North Indians, our mother tongue has been Hindi. Now the person is confused that why here people are so obsessed with fair complexion, why they are so obsessed with English language. It is not because just the medium of communication, it is obsession with English language. You take pride in the fact that you can speak in English and you feel sorry for the fact that you know Hindi. Is that very clear? This, for example, it's a very ironical thing. I'm not talking about South Indian people. Obviously, that's not possible for them and to speak in Hindi. Possible as in, obviously, that's not their language. I am basically here concerning about the North Indians whose mother tongue has been Hindi. They would very conveniently say, if in case they are not speaking in Hindi, very conveniently they'll say, oh, my Hindi is like really bad. I'm not very good with Hindi. Will you ever say like, मेरा ना English थोड़ा खराब है, मुझे ना, you will never tell the other person कि आपका English खराब है, क्योंकि फिर तो आपका status खराब हो जाएगा ना. So now if you have to understand this complex reality, so instead of delving into the real facts, you might have developed an attitude that white race is the superior race. You are in awe and reverence of that white race. You start believing in their superiority. So you have an attitude of awe, reverence towards the white race. Why? In order to understand these complexities of life, that despite being on the darker side, why are we obsessed with the fair complexion? Despite Hindi being our mother tongue, why are we so obsessed with English language? So how will you understand these complexities? So in order to understand the complexities of life, in order to understand the scenario which is going around you, you also tend to develop a certain attitude. Is that very clear? So we developed an attitude of awe and reverence towards white race, thinking that white race is the superior race. भाई कोई superior होता है तभी ना उसको आप, you would like to imitate them. You would like to replicate their conduct because you think they are superior. So you have developed that attitude of awe and reverence towards the white race. I have given this example because I wanted to answer someone. किसी ने पूछा मुझसे knowledge function का एक example और दे दो. Ashutosh, did you get it now? This example was for you. You wanted to ask now one more example as far as knowledge function. So we understood, in order to understand that why there is not many women in the technical education. Second example was knowing that this is a menial job, knowing this can be life-threatening, even then a certain caste people are performing those jobs. And third, knowing that this is not the part of our traditional culture, why are we so obsessed with it? Is that clear? So there can be different complex realities. Either you understand in a truthful manner, or you just develop an attitude just to understand the situation. Now I told you that the attitude that you are developing might not be based on verifiable facts. Who says white race is the superior race? No. But at least with that attitude, it is easy for us to understand what is happening around us. Is that very clear for everyone? ठीक है? बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल. Is there anything called as society's attitude? Generally, an attitude which is held by a considerable members of the society would be termed as society's attitude. Like generally, Indian society's attitude is patriarchal. Did you get the point? So this is how, when a certain attitude is held by a considerable section of the society, then it can be termed as society's attitude. Don't complicate it. Don't complicate it. You said there is nothing wrong in person having positive attitude towards political party based on religious, caste, needs of function. But our constitution says, Pawan, I never said there is nothing wrong. I said this is the fact. All of us are, and it's not about right and wrong. Attitude and value never talks about right and wrong. The moment you talk about right and wrong, it becomes ethics and morals. That is what is the difference. I was just trying to justify that an individual can have any kind of attitude. And being an individual, I gave you a concept that everyone tends to fulfill their selfish interest, right? So I am supporting a political party because for me, my cultural rewards are most important. For me, it doesn't matter that what is happening in the society, but that doesn't mean it is right. Because the day the question would be with respect to right and wrong, then instead of my selfish interest, I have, or I should ideally promote the interest of the larger society. My ethics would be governed by what is written in the constitution. I was just telling you, nahi, when I say something, try to understand in the larger context. Don't pick up the specific words. And thankfully, good you asked this. Because in case that is how you have perceived yesterday's explanation, then it is wrong. I clearly said attitude has nothing to do with right and wrong. What I meant that time was that certain people hold a certain attitude because it is serving some need for you. And the need is to maximize your reward. So even if you are maximizing your reward in the cultural aspect, for example, religion or caste, you might hold that attitude. And I would not say that it is right or wrong. I'm not saying that. But the day question comes that whether that attitude is right or wrong, that would be when it is ethical. Is it ethical to have an attitude with respect to this? Or is it ethical to discriminate someone on the basis of religion or their caste? No. And then it will be like, why it is not ethical? Because it is written in our constitution. Now, did you get the point? पहला डायग्राम याद करो यार, वो डायग्राम मैंने तुम लोगों के लिए इसीलिए बना कर दिया था. मैंने कहा था ना कि जब वैल्यूज को इन द प्रिज्म ऑफ राइट एंड रॉन्ग देखोगे तब वो एथिक्स और मॉरल्स बनती हैं. एटीट्यूड में राइट एंड रॉन्ग नहीं आता है. Did you get the point? Attitude is positive, attitude is negative, attitude is progressive, attitude is regressive. The day you start talking about attitude and right and wrong, tab aata hai ki whether it is ethical to have this attitude, then you will say no, it is not ethical to have this attitude. Is that very clear? Is that clear? Not necessarily, Arunava, it can be common sense. Common sense hai ye ki white race is superior. Nahin. Kabhi it can be imposed ideology. You are made to think. It can be indoctrination also. Good. Chalo. So Pavan, you understood. Arunava, I hope I have answered. Bilkul Ashutosh, you can say that. Yes, you can say that. Prateek, value expressive function. Okay, I was coming. Then the third thing was I discussed with you the ego defensive. And I said, with respect to ego defensive function, I have said that it helps to protect your self-esteem. It helps to protect your honor, right? It helps to protect your ego. So either it is manifest, and that's not a good thing. Okay. So in a way, you are not ready to see or face the truth, right? It protects you from different threats and conflicts which are going. It protects you from acknowledging the basic truth about yourself. You are not ready to accept the truth. I am providing you counter examples, but yet not you are ready to accept the truth. Why? Because if you accept the truth, you feel your ego would be hurt. Your self-esteem would be hurt. So I have insulated myself from any counter explanation. I have created a defense around myself, and that is known as ego defensive attitude. So when you don't achieve something, you say, I never intend to achieve that. If you failed at something, you will put the blame on other. Is that very clear? Okay. So this is how ego defensive attitude is manifested. The problem with ego defensive attitude does not lie in the attitude holder. It lies in the person who is holding that attitude. It is their personality deficiency. Is that very clear? Is that clear? Okay. Absolutely. The next thing was value expressive attitude, function of attitude. Many a times you hold an attitude. Why? Because you want to create a self-image. You are holding certain values. You are holding certain beliefs, right? Now try to understand the same diagram. जब भी मैं ये terms बोला करूँ, वो diagram आपके दिमाग में आ जाना चाहिए. That would make it easy for you to comprehend. Now when you hold a certain belief, right? Not necessarily that would be depicted in your behavior. I anyway told you that your values are not the determinant of your behavior, specific determinant. It is the attitude. Now you hold a certain attitude just because if you are holding certain attitude, it would be reflected in your behavior. And I told you whether you are communicating deliberately or not, your attitude will be conveyed to the other person,
right? So when you hold a certain attitude, it is also because you want to express your values. So if I am a feminist, I'm giving you an example, I will hold an attitude which will tell the other person clearly that I am a feminist. If I am a conservative, I will hold a certain attitude towards various objects to tell the other person that I am a conservative, I am a radical, I am revolutionary, I am patriarchal, I am democratic. So whichever value I am holding, whatever values I stand for, I will hold the attitude which will reflect those values clearly. So that is the value expressive function of that attitude. My attitude is very clear. I believe that domestic chores has to be performed by both men and women. And I'm clear on that. So by means of that attitude, I am giving an impression to the other person, look, I am a feminist. I stand for equal rights for both men and women. Is that clear? Are you getting the point? For me, celebrating Raksha Bandhan has to be a celebration of festival between siblings. It has nothing to do with that only brother should protect the sister. It should be mutual. It should be that siblings should protect, love and respect each other. I stand by it. Because I believe just by imposing that brother is responsible to take care or protect the sister is again reinforcement of the patriarchy. So in such situations, if I'm holding a certain attitude, that is basically to tell the other person that, look, these are my values. If in this particular class, I am allowing you guys to use this response portal freely, it is because I want to convey that I stand for democratic values. I believe that there has to be participation in every discussion. Everyone out there has the right to dissent and to absolutely disagree with me. Is that clear? So by holding that attitude in the class, I want to convey that I stand for democratic values. Is that very clear? But if I ask you that you have to draw a line somewhere, that also means that I truly believe that freedom of speech and expression, if it is given to you, so with that liberty comes certain responsibility. So you have to be responsible enough to maintain the decorum of the class. Is that very clear? So I do believe in that values. So when I am holding in certain attitude towards you people or towards this classroom, it is also depicting my values. Is that very clear? So that is value expressive function. And it is doing impression management. Are you not getting the idea what kind of value system I'm holding? Or for that matter, any person who's holding. Can't you understand by the content of their discussion? Not me, anyone. In fact, on this portal also, if you look at the answers or the response that you get from different set of students, are you not able to identify what can be their value system? Are you getting the point? So this is how it works. So it is a form of impression management. कैसा सवाल है ये अभिनव? One side is feminist, other side is patriarchal. Is there a middle path also? What middle path? Yeah, patriarchal is not something good. And feminist, you should know what is feminism. Male bashing is not feminism. Discrimination against men is not feminism. So all you need to do is you need to understand what is the true understanding of feminism. ठीक है? Is that very clear? Is that very clear for everyone out there? ठीक है? So I hope we have got the answers to the questions that have been asked. ठीक? So yesterday, so the functions is what we have already covered. Then I was discussing with you attitude, behavior, consistency, right? And I told you a general impression is that attitude, behavior is always consistent with the attitude. But then I gave you a certain set of examples to tell you that how always behavior is not consistent with attitude. And then we discussed two studies also. One was Lapierre's study and other was the study which was put forward by Corey. Is that very clear? Okay. So now we have to talk about that what are the factors which determines the attitude behavior consistency. And if you follow yesterday's flow chart, I said the first thing is it depends upon the individual. See, whether there will be attitude behavior consistency or not, it depends upon the individual, it depends upon the situation, and it also depends upon how strong your attitude is. Is that clear? Okay. So what I mean that it depends upon the individual, there are two set of individuals. High on self-monitoring and low on self-monitoring. High on self-monitoring basically means where people are very highly concerned about what other think. Log kya kahenge, in short. What if I don't clear UPSC? What will people think? What if I don't follow the conventional occupation? What will people think? What if I'm not able to top? What will people think? What if I don't marry in my own caste? What will people think? Are you getting my point? So the people who are high on self-monitoring, as in what will people think? What if I tell you my political ideology? What my students will think? What if I tell you what is my value system? What will you guys think? So if I'll think a lot about what others will think, then attitude, behavior, consistency can never be there. Because what is your true attitude which will never be reflected in your behavior? Because every time you will be concerned about what others might think. You don't have the courage. Right? You are always thinking about what others are going to
think about me, how they are going to judge me. Am I supposed to say this or am I not supposed to say this? So when you are into that conflict, your attitude will not be reflected in your behavior. In fact, every time your behavior will be different because it will be determined by your situation. It will be determined by the person with whom you are interacting. Is that very clear? So in different situations with different people, you will have different set of behavior. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि attitude is constantly changing. That I already told you, long-lasting evaluation, that cannot change so easily. So attitude is still there. What is changing is your behavior. So attitude, behavior, consistency will not be there if you are a person on high on self-monitoring. With every changing political government or the government at the center, my nature of interaction, my content of conversation, everything is going to change. Why? Because I am high on self-monitoring. On the contrary, if I'm a person on low on self-monitoring, that means I have the courage. I have the fortitude. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what the other person is. I will stand by my attitude. So your attitude, behavior, consistency would be there. Irrespective of the situation, irrespective of the people with whom you are interacting, the content of your interaction will not undergo a change. Is that clear? Write down. Write down. लोगों का काम है कहना. Deepak, I like that. So, high on self-monitoring. Write down. In different situation, with different people, I often act like a very different person. In different situation, with different people, in different situation, with different people, I often act like a very different person. Quote unquote, write in inverted commas. That is, the behavior results from pragmatic concerns, the behavior results from pragmatic concern, that is, what is appropriate in every situation, what is appropriate in each situation, that would be a better word. Their behavior results from pragmatic concern, their behavior results from pragmatic concern, that is, what is appropriate in each situation, what is appropriate in each situation. Low on self-monitoring, right? Low on self-monitoring, right? My behavior is an expression. My behavior is an expression of my true feelings. My behavior is an expression of my true feelings, attitude and beliefs. True feelings. My behavior is an expression of my true feelings, attitude and beliefs. That is, not determined by the circumstances. Not determined by the circumstances. So, attitude behavior consistency is high. Hence, attitude behavior consistency is high. Attitude behavior consistency is high. Clear है for everyone? ठीक है. Next thing. One was individual, second is situation. Under situation, first is bandwagon effect and second is attitude as heuristic. Bandwagon effect and attitude as heuristic. What I mean by bandwagon effect is, let us say we have X attitude and the other people around us, they are carrying Y attitude. Is that clear? Now, if these people around me who are carrying Y attitude are very important for me, this particular group or community is very important for me, I hold them in high regards. Is that very clear? ठीक है. So, if X attitude is there and what we are holding is Y attitude, the other people who are holding. Guys, do you understand that I'm actually getting distracted now? पता है क्या हो रहा है? जब मैं कुछ पढ़ा रही हूं ना, आप लोग उस मोमेंट में हो ही नहीं. And I will request the coordinator also. You're not supposed to send me the questions like this. Once I have left the interaction of previous class, I gave 20 minutes in the beginning of the class to discuss all the previous issues. And when I'm teaching a fresh topic, how can you ask me a question or how can you post the question which has been discussed in the previous class? तो पहले 20 मिनट में झक थोड़ी ना मार रही थी यार. आप लोगों को समझ नहीं आता है. आपको एक बात बताऊं, आओ यहां पर खड़े हो और पढ़ाओ. You will understand. I don't carry notes as such. When I'm giving you examples, these are very spontaneous areas. I give you example because it keep on coming in my mind. But if you keep on asking questions and what I'm teaching, you are not focusing on that. मैं आपको क्लास के शुरू में भी 15-20 मिनट देती हूँ, मैं आपको क्लास के बाद भी 15-20 मिनट देती हूँ. आप लोग पता नहीं क्या कर रहे हो यार. फिर पता है क्या होता है, आधे से ज्यादा टाइम इफ आई हैव टू गिव सम एग्जांपल आल्सो वो मेरे दिमाग से चला जाता है, बिकॉज बहुत बार चीजें पढ़ाते पढ़ाते मुझे याद आ रही होती हैं। आपको समझ आ रहा है, एथिक्स सोसाइटी इज नॉट अ स्टैंडर्ड सब्जेक्ट. I don't teach you standard subjects. I teach you subjects which are very spontaneous. You have to give me that liberty, यार, कि मैं थोड़ा तो दिमाग चला सकूं. आप लोग मुझे दिमाग चलाने ही नहीं दे रहे हो, कॉन्स्टेंटली वहां पे लिखे जा रहे हो. मैम आप ये क्लास के बाद पढ़ा दोगे. अरे क्लास के बाद जो मुझे पढ़ाना है वो आप मुझसे क्लास के बाद पूछो ना, आप अभी थोड़ी ना पूछोगे मुझसे. इतना फ्रीडम देती हूं मैं आप लोगों को, फिर भी यार आप लोग ऐसे कर रहे हो. पता है मैं अभी आपको बोलने वाली थी कि एक्स इज एन एटीट्यूड कैरीड बाय अस, और मैंने जस्ट उल्टा बोल दिया. आप समझ रहे हो ना मैं कितना डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो रही हूं इस वक्त. प्लीज ऐसे नहीं करो यार. आई गिव यू सो मच ऑफ टाइम टू आस्क मी द क्वेश्चंस. प्लीज डोंट डू दिस. लेट मी एटलीस्ट टीच यू समथिंग. बाद में पूछ लेना. मैं गुस्सा नहीं हो रही हूं, बस मैं आपको अपना प्रॉब्लम बता रही हूं. ठीक है, चलो. X attitude. See, X attitude you need to understand. Let us say I am carrying this particular set of attitude and everyone around me is carrying some other attitude, right? Now, suppose these people, I don't care who are they and I don't even know them. So that will not bother me, or that would not affect my attitude, behavior, consistency. Whatever is my attitude would be reflected in my behavior. But what if these people are important for me? What if these people are my family members? What if this is the group, not my family, but this is a group with whom I want to be associated with? I am drawing my identity from this group. Let us say that. Or let us say this group has a very high social status in the society. So in that situation, my true attitude would not be reflected in my behavior. It will be the attitude of this group which will be determining my behavior. So attitude, behavior, consistency will not be there. That is known as bandwagon effect. There is a disturbance in the mic. Acha, what am I supposed to do? Bhaiya, there is some disturbance in the mic. वो आवाज नहीं आ रही है ठीक से, डिस्टर्बेंस आ रहा है. चेक करवा लीजिए ना. स्ट्रीमिंग इशू भी आ रहा है, पता नहीं क्या है, आप पूछिए ना. ठीक है, वील जस्ट टेक 2 minutes ब्रेक. दे विल जस्ट एडजस्ट इट. करिए तो. सही है, ठीक है, सही है. ठीक. सो दैट इज नोन एज बैंड वैगन इफेक्ट. That your attitude is not determining your behavior, it is the attitude of the group which matters to you determines your behavior. So that is the pressure of everyone around. Is that clear? That is one form of bandwagon effect. There is another thing which is the social norms. I know I actually didn't get annoyed with you, but I'm generally saying. So before I got slightly hyper, so there was a question. Some was saying that individual should be like water. We should adjust according to the social norms and everything. So that is what I'm trying to tell you. We do tend to adjust with the norms. But what if those norms are not positive norms or progressive norms? But I'm generally saying we do tend to adjust with the norms. How it is nothing but the bandwagon effect. Let us say my attitude is that child marriage should not be there. That's my attitude. I believe that child marriage is not only detrimental for the child per se, but it is also detrimental for the future generation, and it is also detrimental for the nation at large. Let us say this is my attitude. But what if I belong to Rajasthan? And in my Rajasthan traditional community, child marriage is a norm. And the norm is very dominant norm. And I know that any straying away from the norm of my society might lead to my social ostracization. Now I know these words are not alien for you. Ostracization or exclusion, what I mean. So in that case, either I should be a person of courage, I can defy the regressive norms, I can go against the society, but that's very rare quality.
So in that situation, my true attitude would not be reflected in my behavior, because my behavior would be governed by the norms, because I have a fear. So obviously these norms are not changing my attitude. I still believe child marriage should not be there. But that attitude is not getting reflected in my behavior. I am not stopping that child marriage. I personally am not in favor of child marriage. But then I'm doing nothing to stop that child marriage. And the reason why I'm not doing anything to stop that child marriage is bandwagon effect. I am governed by those stringent norms of the society, because there is a fear that if I don't follow those norms, then there would be social ostracization. Acha. I'll repeat bandwagon effect. See, bandwagon effect का मतलब यही होता है, दो तरह से होता है. एक, that the attitude of the group whom you hold in high regards, you will try to act according to that attitude. That's one way of doing it, because that attitude is creating a pressure on you. And why is it doing that? Because that particular group is important for you. You hold that group in high regards. You want to be closely associated and accepted by that group. You are tracing your identity from that group. That's one way of doing it. The other way is the larger social norms which are existing in the society. Those norms can be regressive also. Knowing those norms are regressive, you are not in favor of those norms, but you will not do anything to defy those norms also, because you believe that any straying away from those norms might lead to your social ostracization, exclusion, or any kind of punishment also. Is that very clear? So in both the situations, attitude, behavior, consistency will not be there. That is what it means when we say bandwagon effect. Is that clear? Write down. Write down. Bandwagon effect. It refers to pressure to conform. It refers to pressure to conform. Pressure to conform. Pressure to conform. That is, situational factor affects the strength of attitude behavior link. Situational factor affect the strength of attitude behavior link. For example, let us say we have X attitude. For example, let us say we have X attitude and others have Y attitude. Let us say we have X attitude and others have Y attitude. Full stop. If we hold others in high regard, then there is very less probability. If we hold others in very high regard, then there is very less probability of attitude behavior consistency. There is very less probability of attitude behavior consistency. Attitude behavior consistency. Second, if the norms are very strong, and extensively held, if the norms are very strong and extensively held, then everyone behaves according to the norms irrespective of the attitude. According to the norms irrespective of the attitude. irrespective of the attitude. Hence, attitude behavior consistency is less. Hence, attitude behavior consistency is less. Attitude behavior consistency is less. You can give example of child marriage. You can give example of intercaste marriages. Example of child marriage, intercaste marriage. Many times hota hai na that you don't like your job, still you continue doing the job because there is family pressure. So your attitude is very negative towards your job, but still it is not getting reflected in your behavior, right? So you are doing that job because you are under that societal pressure to earn income. You are under that family pressure to continue working and earning income. So your true attitude is not getting reflected in your behavior. So that can also be an example. That suppose a person X doesn't like the job but continues to do the job under societal or family pressure. So that is what it means when we say bandwagon effect. And whenever there is bandwagon effect, attitude behavior consistency is automatically less. Is that very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है? बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. Dowry also fits. Yes. In fact, most of the social evils would fit into this. ठीक है? Next, attitude as heuristic. This is very interesting. Now, let me give you an example to explain this better. Let us suppose I am the HR head. Okay? And although I have patriarchal values, but at the same time, I am also a very efficient worker. See, having patriarchal values has nothing to do with my efficiency. So, I am, let us say, HR head. And the second is taking science after 10th if you are good in studies. Haan, bilkul, 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 absolutely. Yes, I'll take this example, Shobhil. In fact, this is the example from your everyday life. Very good example. Thank you. It is not an academic example. It is the everyday life example. That if you are good with studies, you're not supposed to take humanities. Right? Absolutely correct. We'll take that. And you take this stream also under the pressure of the family members as well as the society. Now, let us take the example that you are an HR head, although you have patriarchal mindset, but despite that, you are also efficient at your workplace. Now, let us suppose you had to make a recruitment. Okay? You got 50 CVs, approximately 25 women were there, 25 men were there, and you had to make the appointment by next week. So you have filtered all the CVs, you've gone through that, you shortlisted some candidates, then you interviewed them, and finally you shortlisted a female candidate because she was actually efficient and deserving. Okay? So although I had patriarchal values, so my attitude was very patriarchal, but that attitude did not reflect in my behavior because I had enough time to deliberate, and my ultimate objective was to ensure that the most talented candidate gets the job. Okay? I've given you the situation. Now, the next month, I again had to make the recruitment, but this time the challenge was I had to make the recruitment by evening. This time I was not given the time space of 1 week. I had to make the recruitment by evening. And again, I had 50 CVs, 25 females, 25 males. My attitude already is patriarchal. And since I have to make the recruitment by evening, what I did was I had time crunch. So first of all, I thought कि चलो ये females को तो अलग करो, हटाओ. Because obviously I have to filter. So now I was left with 25 male CVs and I have to make the recruitment by evening. I said, how many of them are from IIM? So they said कि there are 8 of them who are from IIM. तो मैंने कहा चलो IIM वालों को रखो, बाकियों को हटाओ. I have to make the recruitment by evening. Then I said, how many of them are from IIM Calcutta? They said कि 3 of them are from IIM Calcutta. मैंने कहा बाकियों को हटाओ, इन तीनों को बुलाओ तुरंत इंटरव्यू के लिए. And I shortlisted. Did you get my point? When there is time crunch, then your original attitude would be reflected in your behavior. I had patriarchal attitude. I had elitist attitude with respect to the educational institution. So I was very sure that if given a situation or opportunity, I will recruit from IIM Calcutta only. Did you get my point? I did not even bother to look at the CV. Maybe there were some girls also from IIM Calcutta. So I had shown two attitudes here. One was my patriarchal attitude and other was my elitist attitude with respect to the educational institutions. So whenever you have a time crunch, your original attitude would be reflected in your behavior. And when you've been given a certain time, then you have time to contemplate. So many a time you don't act according to your original attitude. Is that very clear for everyone? For example, I'll give you another set of examples. You had class from 4 o'clock, but due to some reason you came at 3 o'clock. And then there was no place to sit, no classroom was empty. You will experience all of this. Abhi ye example shayad tumko itna nahi samajh aayega. You will experience this when you will come for your offline lectures. Okay? But wherever. Okay? So the point here is, let us say it is too hot outside. So you thought, let me enter this shop. Now you have to pass 1 hour. So you are very constantly roaming in the shop, asking, अच्छा ये कौन से brand का है? अच्छा, okay. This particular deo or perfume is from this brand. Okay, which one is good? अच्छा ठीक है. Then you will apply. You will see because you have time. And ultimately, then you thought कि अच्छा ये वाला actually अच्छा है. So let us purchase. You have never heard of that brand, but then you were trying and everything, and you realize that okay, this is not bad. This is somewhat I'm liking it, and you will purchase, right? So maybe originally you didn't have any attitude towards that particular brand, but after considerably investing time in that, you realized, okay, fine, it is good and you can buy. Okay. Next time what happened, you were in a hurry and you had to purchase some product, but you did not have time. So the moment you entered the shop, you said, मुझे इस brand का ये दे दीजिए. उन्होंने कहा नहीं सर और भी ब्रांड्स आए हैं, इससे बेहतर आए हैं. आप बोलोगे नहीं मैंने और कुछ ट्राई नहीं करा है, दिस इज व्हाट आई बिलीव इन, आप मुझे यही दे दो. अरे सर सुनो तो इससे बेहतर और इससे चीपर आया है. अरे भाई साहब आपसे कह रहे ना, जस्ट गिव दिस टू मी, आप ये दे दो, मुझे नहीं चाहिए इससे सस्ता. समझ आ रहा है? So what was your true attitude reflected in your behavior? You were already positively disposed towards that brand. तभी कहते हैं brand impact. जो हम brand impact कहते हैं ना, ये advertisements पे इतना पैसा डालते हैं, what is the impact of those brands? This is how it works. Because those brands somewhere in your subconscious mind is there. So whenever there will be a time crunch, you will purchase the product according to the brand that you know. Is that very clear? So whenever there is a time crunch, attitude, behavior, consistency will be there. And whenever you have your own time, so that would be there. ठीक है? तभी आप लोगों को ज्यादा दिक्कत है. You have to write in 3 hours 2 essay. You have time crunch. That is why time and again I say that your original ideologies will get reflected. So practice to have a very neutral point of view. हमें बड़ा फायदा था 3 घंटे में एक ऐसे. हम आराम से सोच के लिखते थे. हाफ ऑफ द टाइम तो मैं आईएएस बनकर भी लौट आती थी और मैंने ये भी सोच लेती थी कि अच्छा मैं आईएएस बन गई तो मुझे किस किस को क्या क्या जवाब देना है. सो ये सब बहुत कॉमन था, बट वो सारा लिबर्टी यू डोंट हैव. ठीक है? सो व्हेनेवर देयर इज टाइम क्रंच, योर ट्रू एटीट्यूड वुड बी रिफ्लेक्टेड इन योर बिहेवियर. इज दैट क्लियर? सपोज यू आर पासिंग ऑन द रोड, you saw one girl slapping a boy. What would be the first response? You don't have time to delve into, to meddle into their matter. पक्का लड़के ने बदतमीजी करी होगी and you will go. Because true जो ओरिजिनल एटीट्यूड है वो तो यही कहता है, if there is a conflict between a boy and a girl, the fault is always of that of a boy. That is a true attitude. That's the original attitude which many of us are carrying. Hands on your heart, many of the boys also believe the same. ठीक है? So this is how it has been socialized. This is how the society operates. So if you see a girl slapping a guy, the first thing that will come to your mind, because you don't have time to meddle in their affairs, you will pass and say, पक्का कुछ किया होगा इसने. ऐसे ही है आजकल के. Are you getting the point? But in case you have time, you are meddling into their affair, then you will be a neutral party listening to both of the side, and then you will come to the conclusion, नहीं इस बार तो लड़की की गलती है. She overreacted. Did you get the point? ठीक है? So whenever you have time crunch, your original attitude will be reflected in your behavior. Write down. Attitude as heuristic. Attitude as heuristic. Attitude as heuristic. Strategies based on past experiences. Strategies या मौसम. Very मतलब example from the everyday life. Yes. Zomato case. हाँ राहुल कह सकते. Yes. strategies based on past experiences which will lead to solution. Heuristic का मतलब क्या होता है वो बता रही हूँ. Heuristic means strategies based on past experiences which will lead to the solution but may not guarantee success. Strategies based on past experiences which will lead to solution but may not guarantee success. But may not guarantee success. Full stop. Yes, Venkat, absolutely correct. Now write down. You have information overload. Ab attitude as heuristic may write down. This was the definition of heuristic which I gave. Now write down. You have information overload. No time to plan. Audio problem आ रहा है फिर से. Okay, I'm just getting it checked. क्या दिक्कत है आज? Wait, I'm getting it checked. देखो लिख रहे हैं ना सब. बोलिए स्ट्रीमिंग इशू भी है और नॉइज इशू भी है. ठीक है. चलो लिखो. You have information overload. No time to plan or contemplate before behavior. No time to plan or contemplate before behavior. Hence, whatever attitude we possess, we act accordingly. So whatever attitude we possess, we act accordingly. Example. Can you write that example? You are a recruiter in the organization and there are a set of male and female candidates. You possess slightly patriarchal attitude. So if you have a time crunch, will you be able to write the example? I hope I am not supposed to dictate examples. Can you write the example of brand impact? Brand impact while shopping or purchasing. ठीक है? Then the example of HR head which I gave. Can you write that example? ठीक है? You've written it? Okay, thank you. ठीक? So did you understand what is attitude as heuristic? So the next thing that we have to talk about is attitude strength. Let's quickly take this. Attitude strength, it also depends upon that how strong your attitude is, right? And how the strength of the attitude is determined? It is determined by the relevance of the attitude object. It is determined by how you have acquired that attitude. It is determined by how specific the attitude is, and also the attitude accessibility. And the stronger your attitude is, the more would be attitude behavior consistency. The stronger the attitude is, more will be the attitude behavior consistency. So how will you determine whether the attitude is strong or not? So it would be determined first by the relevance of attitude object. What am I trying to say is that, let us suppose you are a very empathetic person. Your attitude is based on empathy, compassion. Now you are working, right? You are working in your company, and there has a message which is being sent to you by a friend that there is some relative who requires, let us say, A positive blood, and he is admitted in Max hospital, right? And you are working in Karol Bagh, and the person is admitted in Max. Obviously, अब आप उस time में भी जो relevance of the attitude object है वो देखनी है. You are compassionate, you have empathy, but here the attitude object is a distant relative of your friend. So in that possibility, you will think, should I go or should I not? Then you will think, yaar, beach, matlab it's half day only, and if I go right now, they will cut my half day's leave. And maybe, yes, he must have sent the message to so many people. Koi na koi to chala hi jayega. That is what is the attitude. The next time you got a message that your immediate relative, let us say your mother, your father, who's admitted in the hospital and immediately they require blood, or your immediate relative, your cousin is admitted in the hospital and you are supposed to give the blood, then you will not see whether you are in middle of a work or not, whether you will lose out on half of your salary for the day or not. You will not think how hot it is outside, how much time will it take to reach there. You will not think about those things. So your attitude is there. You are still a compassionate person, you are still an empathetic person, but how strong your attitude is depends upon the relevance of the attitude object for you. If it is my immediate relative, if it is my immediate friend, obviously I'll leave everything and I'll go, so my attitude would be reflected in my behavior. But if it is some distant relative of some distant friend, I would not be doing that. Although I am a compassionate person, I will ask twice or thrice, did you get someone to donate the blood? Is it there? अगर कुछ भी नहीं हो तो मुझे रात तक बताना, मैं आ जाऊंगा. Are you getting the point how it works? So did you get an answer? That relevance of the attitude object. क्या लिख रहे हो आप लोग? No. क्या चल रहा है? Okay. ठीक है. So relevance of the attitude object. Did you understand this point? It depends upon how important or relevant the object is for you. If it is very important for you, the attitude strength increases, and whatever is your attitude, that will be reflected in your behavior. Is that clear? ठीक है. So relevance समझ आया? इसको बस ऐसे ही लिखना है. Higher the relevance of attitude object, higher would be the strength of attitude, and stronger the attitude, the more will be attitude behavior consistency. बस ऐसे ही लिख के छोड़ दो. The relevance, the higher the relevance of the attitude object, the greater would be the strength of the attitude. The greater the strength of the attitude, the more would be the attitude behavior consistency. Is that clear? इतना तो clear है ना? हाँ? अब है, how have you acquired the attitude? The next thing is, how have you acquired the attitude? Now listen, let us suppose I am very positively disposed towards cricket. I have a very positive attitude towards cricket. I'm a big fan of cricket. That's not because I play cricket. I like cricket because I was a fan of Saurav Ganguly. थोड़ा पर्सनल एग्जाम्पल हो गया. आप धोनी भी बोल सकते हो, आप विराट कोहली भी बोल सकते हो, आप कुछ भी बोल सकते हो. आई एम जनरली टेलिंग यू, हाउ डिड आई एक्वायर माई एटीट्यूड? डिड आई प्ले क्रिकेट? नो, आई एम नॉट अ प्लेयर. So how did I acquire that positive attitude, that fan attitude towards cricket?
ठीक है, that crazy attitude towards cricket because I was a crazy fan of a particular player. Is that very clear? ठीक है. Now, if someone asks me, it's right in the afternoon, 12 o'clock or let us say 2 p.m. in the afternoon, the sun rays are there, and somebody asks me, will you go and watch the match? You are such a big fan of cricket. I was like, अब सौरव गांगुली तो खेलता भी नहीं है, कौन दोपहर में 2 बजे जाएगा? नहीं, I'll get tanned, I will not go. Did you get my point? I love cricket. I like cricket. But that doesn't mean that 2 p.m. in the afternoon I'll go sit in the sun and watch the people playing cricket. Absolutely not. But if I have a positive attitude towards cricket because I have been playing cricket all my life, right? So it depends how have you acquired that attitude towards that attitude object. By the first hand experience or by some secondary experiences, right? So it depends. So if you have been a hardcore cricket player or a soccer player all your life or a tennis player and you have been playing, then you will not bother whether it is afternoon, midnight or right in the morning. Whenever you will get time, you will play because you have that passionate attitude. So it depends how have you acquired the attitude. I'll tell you the difference. If someone asks a general person, what's your opinion about reservation? You have nothing to do with your क्या कहते हैं, government jobs or for that matter. You said reservation, हाँ देख लो होना चाहिए. These people have been suppressed, so there has to be a reservation. ठीक है, so you don't have a very strong attitude towards reservation. You might be positively oriented, you might be negatively oriented towards reservation, but that's not very positive. But what if, let us say, that you missed out by 1 marks while getting the admission in the college and the other person due to reserved categories securing lesser marks than you have made it to the college. That is your first hand experience of a reservation, right? So you might be having altogether a different attitude towards it. The strongness of the attitude, the strength of the attitude would be very different. You are A and B people. A also thinks that the reservation should not be there. I'm just giving you an example. But A didn't have any personal experiences. So जब बोलने की बारी आई ग्रुप में तो उसने देखा यार सब लोग तो reservation के favor में बोल रहे हैं. So he said yeah, reservation should be there. So attitude, behavior, consistency is not there. I hope you're getting this example. Let us say A person is there. A person believed that reservation should not be there. But the person did not have any personal experiences with respect to reservation. Nothing to do with government jobs, nothing to do with higher education in these areas. So the person was very okay and he said reservation should not be there. That's his personal attitude. But when the group discussion was happening, there were a lot of people who were saying that nahi, reservation should be there and everything. He said yeah, reservation should be there. His true attitude did not reflect in his behavior because attitude was not strong. On the contrary, there is a B person who has suffered due to some reasons because of reservation policy, some reason XYZ. So obviously that is something he has acquired first-hand experience. So when every other person is talking that reservation should be there, he stood up and he said no, reservation should not be there. There has to be some criteria for giving reservation. Caste cannot be the only basis. There has to be some income criteria, there has to be some other criterias. Are you getting the point? And the person was, despite everyone going against him, he still stood by his attitude because his attitude strength was very strong. He himself has suffered in the hands of this policy. I'm just giving you an example to explain. Did you get my point? So it depends, how have you acquired the attitude? Is that clear? Anand, peace and peace protest would be this. Specific attitude. ये समझ आया सबको? जल्दी बताओ. Did you understand the example? Is that clear? Is it making sense that how have you acquired that attitude? It also depends upon this fact. और ऐसे ही लिखना है. If you have acquired the attitude through your personal first-hand experience, automatically the strength of the attitude would be very high. And that would be reflected in your behavior. That would be reflected in your behavior. Are we clear on this? I think Anand wrote specific example, peace and peace protest. Perfect. Specific. Your attitude towards peace is you are very favorably disposed towards peace. So when I assume that you will be participating in the peace protest, you did not. So that means your attitude was not getting reflected in your behavior because the attitude was not very specific. I did not ask you the specific thing. I have asked your attitude about an idea, a value, a belief, that you have a positively disposed attitude towards peace. I should have asked you a very specific thing. What's your opinion or attitude about peace protest? So that would be determining the strength of the attitude. The more specific the attitude is, the more stronger the attitude is. Your attitude towards religiosity and your attitude towards going to temple, this is more specific. You are very positively disposed towards religiosity. You believe in religiousness. But that does not mean that you will be attending or going to the temple to worship. Many people don't do that. Many people believe God lies in their heart. Did you get the example? So it has to be more specific. Yeah, you got the point, Anand. Religiosity and Jagrata. I think I've given this example before. So it depends upon how specific the attitude is. Is that very clear? See? Accessibility. Accessibility is how quickly you are able to access your attitude the moment you see the attitude object. Kabhi sochna. What's your opinion about homosexuality? If quickly you say yes, I think it's absolutely fine. That means your attitude is very strong, positively oriented towards homosexuality. You have a strong attitude and that will be reflected in your behavior. If anybody is going to go against homosexuals, you are going to raise your concerns. Then I asked you, what's your opinion about homosexuality? You said absolutely not, it is against the law of nature. What crap, it should not be there. Decriminalization of homosexuality needs to be revisited. Section 377 should not be decriminalized. That shows you are negatively disposed towards this idea. So whenever homosexuality as an issue would be raised, you will be negatively or you will be opposing this. In both the scenario, whether it was positive disposition or negative disposition, your attitude has been very strong. Because the moment the idea was put forward, the moment the attitude object was kept in front of you, the accessibility was quick. But then I asked you, what's your opinion about homosexuality? Let's see. ठीक है, individual's choice. देख लो क्या करना है. I personally, I don't have any opinion on this. I think it's to each on their own. That means your attitude is not strong enough because that accessibility was not there. Did you get the point? So the moment you see adequate object, attitude object, so seeing that attitude object, whatever is the attitude that comes to your mind, and the quickly it comes to your mind, the stronger would be the attitude. And the stronger the attitude would be, it would be reflected in your behavior. Did you get the point? What is accessibility? Bilkul, Shivam, yes, absolutely, absolutely. The moment you talk about these issues, whether it is untouchability, whether it is reservation, whether it is, okay, if I take a person's name, opposition party, the current leader of the opposition party, the moment his name is taken, suddenly a word comes to our mind, with all due respect. If ever I take this name, suddenly many people, the reaction is very strong. The attitude is very strong. Because the moment you listen to this name, immediately it comes to your mind. Okay. Accessibility in simple words means how quickly you are able to access your attitude. If this is the object, let us say it is some political leader. The moment I hear the name, my reaction is totally obvious. फिर से, इनकी तो रहने ही दो. The moment I hear the name, the moment I see a particular anchor on the TV, I am like, just change the channel. He doesn't do anything apart from shouting. Quickly change the channel. Oh, this person, he's totally corrupt, totally biased, change the channel. So the moment you see the attitude object, the attitude comes quickly to your mind, that means the accessibility is very fast. Then the attitude is very strong and it will be reflected in your behavior whether you want it or not. No matter how much I try to control my attitude with respect to certain anchors, with respect to certain political people, the party members, I am just not able to. वो कहीं ना कहीं हंस के एक स्मग के साथ, ग्रिन के साथ, और obviously it just comes out. At least it gets communicated and I know. So after these many classes, I am very sure that you know what is my political inclination. No matter how much hard I try not to make it very evident, but you know my political inclination. You know what I think about certain people in power. You know what I think about certain media persons. You know what opinion I hold about judiciary. You know that, right? Because my attitude is very strong here and it is getting reflected in my behavior. So accessibility matlab the moment you see that attitude object, how quickly the attitude comes to your mind, whether it is positive or it is negative. But when you see the attitude object and you just go in that contemplation mode, देख लो क्या करना है, देखते हैं, I have no personal opinion, to each on his own, मतलब कुछ opinion है ही नहीं. So that means your attitude is not very strong. Is that very clear? So is it that not having a strong attitude about something is undesired? यार again वही चीज है, desirability और undesirability की तो बात ही नहीं है. यहाँ पे the question is attitude, behavior, consistency. टॉपिक डिजायरेबिलिटी तो है ही नहीं. किसने पूछा था? जिसने भी पूछा था. इट इज नॉट अबाउट डिजायरेबिलिटी, इट इज अबाउट कंसिस्टेंसी, बिकॉज आई टोल्ड यू that attitude is consistent with behavior, or let us put it this way, behavior is consistent with attitude. But then I'm giving you examples that see attitude, behavior is not consistent. Then the question is, then in what circumstances will it be consistent? Then I told you, if you have a strong attitude, so then it will be consistent. Then you will ask me, ma'am, what do you mean by strong attitude? I say it depends what is the relevance of the attitude object. It depends how specific your attitude is. It depends how have you acquired that attitude. It depends how quickly accessible your attitude is. If these are the factors, then automatically your strength of attitude is high, and in that situation, attitude, behavior, consistency would be there. It is not about desirability or undesirability. What if the attitude strength is high, but at the same time that attitude is destructive, that attitude is negative? Then how can I say it is desirable? Destructive attitude है और वो भी strong है और वो behavior में reflect हो रहा है, कांड हो जाएगा. Are you getting the point? I have a very strong attitude of fundamentalism, and that is getting reflected in my behavior, communal clashes. Do you think it is desirable? तो desirable की तो बात ही नहीं है बच्चे यहाँ पे. It is attitude, behavior, consistency. Is that very clear? किस context में प्रतीक? I did not get your question. Does attitude strength have any relation with future consequences or only present situation? Relevance of the attitude object, how have you acquired the attitude, specific, इसमें तो future consequences है ही नहीं, नहीं, नहीं. These are the factors. That's it. No, Pratik, I don't think so. No. Just see. Just look at the face value. Just look at what it is saying. Relevance of the attitude object. Future consequences, I actually did not understand what exactly you're trying to ask. But according to my understanding or my interpretation of your question, I am saying that attitude object is already present. It has nothing to do with future consequences. How have I acquired the attitude? It has already acquired. So again, it has nothing to do with future consequences. Specific is in how specifically I'm relating it with the attitude object. Accessibility. नहीं. ठीक है? चलो. हाँ, Divyansh, absolutely. मैं वही कह रही हूं, आई एम आंसरिंग द सेम थिंग. इट्स नॉट अबाउट राइट एंड रॉन्ग. न्यूट्रल एटीट्यूड होगा, बस इतना है कि इट इज नॉट स्ट्रॉन्ग इनफ. Not necessarily that will be reflected in your behavior, and not every time you have to behave matlab in a specific manner. What if I don't have knowledge? Absolutely correct. If you don't have knowledge, why do you have to give your opinion, right? So it's not about right and wrong. It is not about desirability, undesirability. It is just about attitude, behavior, consistency. ठीक है? Kanishk, yeah. Agar the Kanishk has said that the moment maths teacher enters the class, when it is your games period, everyone becomes sad. Can I use this example? If the question comes from your everyday life, you can quote this example. But I think इसका opportunity कम ही मिलेगा तुमको Kanishk, लेकिन तुमको मुद्दा समझ आ गया है. That I am happy about. The example you've given is absolutely fine. ठीक है, चलो एक क्वेश्चन ऐसे ही लिखो, मुझे मिल गया. क्या लिखा है? ह्यूरिस्टिक एंड एक्सेसिबिलिटी इज सिमिलर. कह सकते हैं, बट ह्यूरिस्टिक इज मोर टू डू विथ द सिचुएशन एंड एक्सेसिबिलिटी कैन बी एनीवेयर. ठीक है, सो दैट इज द ओनली डिफरेंस. ह्यूरिस्टिक में तो टाइम क्रंच फैक्टर होता है ना, एक्सेसिबिलिटी हैज नथिंग टू डू विथ टाइम क्रंच. संकेत, ठीक है? इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? ठीक, चलो एक यूपीएससी का क्वेश्चन मुझे आज दिख गया था 2017 का. राइट डाउन. Nothing to do with this lecture. रफ में लिखो, अभी मुझे दिख गया इसलिए मैं दे रही हूं. If a country is to be corruption free, you guys are asking me to dictate this point. बच्चे ये तो डिक्टेट करने लायक है ही नहीं, इसमें क्या डिक्टेट करूं? If you have acquired the attitude through your first hand experience, for example, a person fond of a sport because he is a player, or he is a fond of sport because he is a fan of some player. So that is the difference. This is what you have to write. Specific. The more specific the attitude is, the more stronger it is. For example, peace versus peace protest, religiosity versus visiting temple or going to temple. बस इतना ही लिखना है तुषार. There's nothing else. Accessibility, the more easily the attitude is accessible, the moment you see the attitude object, the more stronger it is. The more easily and quickly the attitude is accessible, the moment you see the attitude object, the stronger the attitude is. Venkat, I have dictated. I've already dictated. Write down the question. See, most of the part I do dictate. If there are one or two things, ये तो आप लिख सकते हो ना, ठीक? अच्छा चलो, इस पे discussion नहीं करते. Did you understand what I dictate, Tushar? Did you write? Venkat, did you write now? अब तो लिख लिया है ना? Now write down the question. If a country is to be corruption free, if a country is to be corruption free and become a nation of beautiful minds, become a nation of beautiful minds, I strongly feel there are three key societal members. I strongly feel there are three key societal members who can make the difference. There are three key societal members who can make a difference: father, mother, and the teacher. Father, mother, and the teacher. It's a quotation by APJ Abdul Kalam. And the key word or the tail word is analyze. Analyze. It is a quotation by APJ Abdul Kalam. and the tail word is analyze. Yes, Rishabh. Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely. Rishabh is saying, can we quote the example that people's behavior, basically cyberbullying, that with respect to their favorite players or favorite actor, so regarding their criticism on social media, they are not ready to accept the criticism and they start cyberbullying. So Niti Aayog chairman has said it's a bhakt culture in sport. Bilkul, bilkul. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? Now, the question which I gave, it's a UPSC question 2017. Did you understand what is supposed to be written? हमने कहा था ना हम कोई भी डिस्कशन ऐसा नहीं करेंगे जो आपको काम नहीं आएगा. I discussed the role of mother with you. I have discussed the role of father with you. I have discussed the role of teacher with you. Can you write the answer now? Read the question and tell me quickly. Can you write the answer? ऐसे ही क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी पूछता है. Rahul, there has been a class. There has already been a class about the tail words. Yes, socialization, related to social, absolutely correct. So can you talk about that if the country has to be corruption free or it has to become a nation of beautiful minds, right kind of values have to be inculcated, a virtuous society has to be created, right? नहीं नहीं, करप्शन पे इतना डिस्कशन नहीं करना है. द क्वेश्चन इज मोर फोकसिंग ऑन द रोल ऑफ मदर, फादर एंड टीचर. So you just have to say that if you have to create a virtuous society which is free of corruption and is a nation of beautiful minds, right kind of value inculcation has to be done. Values are inculcated by means of process of socialization, right? And there are three important agencies of socialization: father, mother and teacher. And then you will be talking about their respective roles. Is that very clear? And this is how the answer. 10 marker question है यार. इस पे करप्शन पे ज्यादा डिस्कशन मत करना, क्योंकि फिर क्या होगा, 10 मार्कर है तो करप्शन को डिफाइन करने की जरूरत नहीं है यहाँ पे, नहीं तो फिर ब्यूटीफुल माइंड्स भी डिफाइन करने पड़ जाएंगे. तो वो सब नहीं करो. यहाँ पे मुद्दा है 3 की सोसाइटल मेंबर्स. इज दैट क्लियर? लिख लोगे? तो यूपीएससी क्वेश्चंस देखो कैसे आ रहे हैं, कर लोगे आराम से, टेंशन नहीं लेना है, थोड़ा आंसर राइटिंग बस करना है. चलो, लेट मी स्टार्ट द अदर थिंग. नाउ विद दिस द specific aspect of attitude comes to an end. There, I told you that once I'm going to finish this topic, I will tell you that how the attitude can be changed and what needs to be done. See, in the capacity of an administrator, you will be taught by the other faculty. Because ethics in public administration and everything, aptitude and civil service values, वो दूसरी फैकल्टी पढ़ाएगी. लेकिन बस मैं एक आपको आइडिया दे देती हूं. Make this much. See, it is referred as theory of planned behavior, but don't get into that theoretical aspect of planned behavior, just try to understand. Attitude with respect to behavior, subjective norms and perceived behavioral control. I'll explain everything. See, I told you that attitude might not be consistent with the behavior every time, but it is often believed that if you have an intent to behave, then the behavior would always be there. So what is the possibility that you are going to behave in a certain manner is also determined by the intention to behave. Is that clear? So if you have intention to behave, then you will be behaving in a certain manner. So what are the factors which determines how strong your intention is? See, at the end of it, you have to be a public administrator, right? And being a public administrator, I already told you that for effective governance, for effective administration, you should be able to predict the behavior of the people of your area, right? And in order to predict the behavior, you should be knowing that do they have the intention to behave or not. So if they have a strong intention to behave in a certain manner, then the probability of that behavior is also very high. So what we should be able to predict is whether they have the intention or not. Okay. How that intention is ensured? The intention is ensured to three things, right? One is the attitude towards the behavior, other is the subjective norms, third is the perceived behavioral control. What I mean is, let me give you an example. Let us take the example, let us say intercaste marriage. Now, your attitude is that absolutely intercaste marriage should be allowed. You are positively disposed towards intercaste marriage. Positively disposed towards intercaste marriage. So you do have the attitude, right? But do you have the intention to behave? As in, do you have the intention to support intercaste marriage or not, will also be determined by other two factors. Now here the subjective norms are dead against intercaste marriage. There are incidences of honor killing. You have khap panchayats. It has clearly said that if you go for intercaste marriage, there would be social ostracization. So subjective norms are against it. And at the same time, chalo, let us say even if the subjective norms are against it, do you have the perceived behavioral control? What I mean by perceived behavioral control is, are you a person of high self-efficacy? Ab ye term yaad hai? Padha tha humne? Self-efficacy. You believe in your inner abilities to accomplish any task. That is self-efficacy. Similarly, there is another term, internal locus of control. Are you a person of internal locus of control or external? Internal locus of control is that whether you believe that there come any challenge, do you have the belief, faith in your own capabilities that you can address that challenge? So whether you are a person of internal locus of control or external locus of control, do you rely on someone else to help you to seep through those challenges, or you have the confidence or you have the courage to address those challenges on your own? So do you have that courage or not? Are you a person of internal locus of control or not? Do you look for some external factors for support, or you believe in your own strength to manage any challenge? So on the similar lines, a person who is high on self-efficacy or a person who has internal locus of control, in both these situations, it gives you courage to overcome the subjective norms. But these are the rare qualities, right? So we'll discuss. Now I'm just giving you a random picture. I'll give you more examples to make you understand. So even if you have attitude disposed towards the behavior, but the subjective norms and perceived behavioral control is not there, you will not have the intention to behave. As a result, behavior would not be there. Is that clear? And I'm taking the situation where you have the attitude पॉजिटिव एटीट्यूड टूवर्ड्स दैट सर्टेन डिजायर्ड बिहेवियर. एक और सिचुएशन आ सकती है वेयर यू डोंट हैव द एटीट्यूड ऑल्सो. So in that situation, I have to ensure all these three things in order to guarantee that you have the intention to behave. And that is what is the job of the administrator. Now let us take an issue. Our Prime Minister said that the population needs to be controlled. There are certain areas where the fertility rate is higher than the national average. You are a district magistrate of that area where of your district the fertility rate is higher than the national average. Now you have to convince them to behave in a manner that they adopt the practice of family planning. What will you do? Okay, stop asking the questions there. Just look at what is written on the board. Now here I am looking for the response. अब response portal को true sense में use करते हैं. I am looking for your answer here. Is that very clear? So attitude with respect to behavior, subjective norms, perceived behavioral control. You are going to be an administrator who has to work in context of family planning, right? You have to convince the people to adopt the practices of family planning. So they should have the intention to adopt the practices of family planning. And for them to have the intention to adopt the practice of family planning, first, they should have positive attitude towards family planning measures. The subjective norms should be in favor of family planning. And then there has to be perceived behavioral control. How will you ensure all these three things? How will you ensure all these three things? How will you ensure all these three things? बताओ जल्दी से, सोचो और बताओ. थोड़ा और सोचो. Give me specific points. Rishabh, I like the points. Fine, walking the talk, ठीक है. But I like Rishabh का points. भुवन, हाँ ये भी points ठीक है भुवन. ठीक है. नेहा, we'll take your points also. ठीक. शार्दुल, fine. ठीक है. ठीक. Yeah. ठीक. So you are getting an idea that how it is supposed to be done. ठीक है. I will just help you in getting an idea that how the answer writing can be done or how the approach has to be there. Now see, in every society there are three kinds of people. Facilitator, resistor and fence sitter. Facilitator are easy to change. They have good hearing capabilities. They are not very rigid. They have flexible orientation. So if you suggest them something good, if you give them rationale, if you give them logic, they tend to listen to you, and in case they find it is required, desirable to change, so they do often change also. So they have flexible attitude. Whereas resistors are those who are always very rigid in their orientation. They are never open to new ideas.
They are very rigid people. In fact, they are very orthodox, traditional people who prefer status quoism. So these are the people who are resistors. And fence sitters are those who are indecisive. They cannot decide on their own. So wherever they see herd, they move with the herd. So they basically have the herd mentality. Thali ke began hote hain. So wherever the flow is, they will move with the flow. They don't ever tend to bring about large scale changes or development or progressiveness in the society. They are basically with the majority. So fence sitters are the indecisive people, right? I'm generally giving you an idea. You've written something. Let me see what you guys have written. Awareness campaign to ensure positive attitude, debunking different myths associated with family planning, incentives, accessibility. ठीक है, fine. किसने दिया? अच्छा दिया है. Education, ठीक है. Pros and cons, educating parents, ठीक है. So more or less you've understood, right? So in such a situation, see, family planning sometimes is associated, or many a times is associated with your core values. Let us suppose you have targeted the resistors, or you have targeted the fence sitter. The moment you have started with the campaign of convincing people with family planning, it will fail. They will never take a decisive decision and they will always resist. So you should always aim, you should look in every district, in every area that you are going to govern. You will always find certain people who are facilitators. They are easy to convince if you have proper rationality. तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये बहुत indecisive है. It's just that they are at least open to the ideas to bring about social change. Because the moment you initiate the change through a facilitator, it will slowly and gradually have a snowballing effect or domino effect. Anything you can use. So obviously you will be meeting with the success, so it would be easier for you to convince. So always look for those who are facilitator, because it is easy to convince them through proper rationality, facts, statistics, and once they change, so it would have a snowballing effect on others. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you have to target is how to change the attitude. Now, to know or to change the attitude towards a certain behavior, you should first know that why they are not in the favor of family planning. It might be because they consider that more number of children means more number of working hands. And this is the reason they are not going for family planning. Or it can be because of their religious ideologies, or it can be due to lack of awareness and accessibility to various contraceptives, or there is desirability of a male child, or it can be son meta preference. There can be different factors which are responsible. So first you should identify the reason for them not adopting family planning methods. Once you understand the reason, you have understood the need, that why they are holding certain attitude, then I told you now that you have to suggest them an alternative attitude to serve their existing need better. Now let us suppose they believe that more number of children means more number of working hands. Maybe because they believe that male child would be a better social support or economic support system in their old age. So you have to suggest them an alternative attitude. You have to tell them cost and benefit analysis, that no, your economic interest is not getting served with having more number of children, because Child Labor Prohibition Act is already in place. And more number of children means you will have more expenditure, less savings, less income. Is that very clear? So in fact, your standard of living, instead of improving, will decline in a longer time period. So you have to convince them, the points that you have written there, you have to convince them on the basis of cost benefit analysis. The points that you have written. What are the positives of adopting small family norms, and what are the negatives of having more number of children? You have to convince. Once you have convinced them, because see, you will change your attitude if you have suggested them an alternative attitude which can serve their existing need better. So first you have to understand their need, And then either you change their need or you suggest them an alternative attitude which serves their need better. So attitude with respect to the behavior has now been addressed. Now the second point comes, the subjective norms. Subjective norms as in the norms in the society which will promote family planning practices. For example, you can start with conditional cash transfers. You can incentivize girl child. Monetary incentives can be given to the parents having girl child or a limited number of children who are family planning कर रहे हैं, या फिर conditions for contesting in elections. है ना, बहुत सारे states हैं जहां पे if you have more than 2 kids you cannot contest for local panchayat elections. So such restrictions can be imposed. These will be the subjective norms which will promote the culture of family planning. There can be conditional cash transfers. You can incentivize the birth of a girl child. Obviously the desirability of the male child will be addressed through these subjective norms. And the third and the most important thing, ऐसा तो है नहीं कि पूरी society एक साथ ही change हो रही है. It is basically only to convince the facilitators. But there will always be certain resistors who will try to act as an impediment. In that situation, you have to create a society where people have the courage, where people have internal locus of control. Or internal locus of control does not develop in vacuum. Just because today I think, no, I will be a courageous person. I will fight all the evils in the society. Do you really think it works like this? No. You have to give confidence to your people that if you stand with honesty, if you stand with truth, we are there to back you. You have my back wali baat hoti hai. But the problem in our society is that is not being ensured. So how will you ensure that perceived behavior control? You will ensure it by means of good governance. You will ensure it through transparency, accountability, responsibility. You will ensure it through robust grievance redressal mechanism. You will ensure it through democratic governance. The stronger is your social audit mechanism, the stronger is your RTI, the stronger is your citizen charter, the stronger is your grievance redressal mechanisms, the stronger, the more participative your governance is, the lesser the power distance. Between citizens and authority. The lesser the power distance, the more the confidence. So when you have this kind of environment, automatically you will develop that courage. You will develop that fortitude. The children who have that courage is basically those where the parents are always there to support them. Where the parents, ऐसा नहीं है जो मतलब blind support नहीं. Support as in if you are in some problem, the parents instead of ridiculing you will stand by you, will help you manage through crisis. Automatically you will become a more confident, courageous and a bold person. Similarly, a citizen, whether a citizen will be a courageous person, a bold, confident person or not, it all depends upon the governance. So if you have democratic governance, if you are transparent, accountable, power distance is less, grievance redressal mechanism is robust, automatically the people, the citizens that you are creating will be having internal locus of control. And if you ensure these things, family planning can be imposed. Is that clear? Bilkul, free girl education, absolutely. I like this point. Ashish, street plays. You can come up with any point that you want to write. Street plays. IEC campaign, information, education, communication campaigns can be used. You can make use of charismatic personalities. Walking the talk, somebody wrote. You can give any examples that you want to.
I am just trying to tell you that these three things, अब इसको theory of planned behavior की तरह मत पढ़ो, ethics में इस तरह से नहीं पढ़ा जाता है, कोई आपसे नहीं पूछेगा theory of planned behavior लिखिए, but this can help you in arranging your content, because the question might be that how will you ensure family planning measures are adopted in your area. So how it can be ensured? First, I have to mold the attitude towards this desirable behavior. Second, I will have to create favorable subjective norms. Then I have to ensure the circumstances which creates people who have internal locus of control. What I wrote here was good governance, transparency, accountability, responsibility, robust grievance redressal mechanism, democratic governance. Here I have written lesser the power distance between the citizen and authority. Sanket, I never said resistors can be tackled. I said, acha, okay, I got the point. You were asking that I told you that resistors will create hurdles for you, right? So how would you do that? देखो हर सोसाइटी में होगा, हो सकता है वो आपका बॉयकॉट करे, राइट? तो महाराष्ट्र के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में आया है एंटी बॉयकॉट बिल विच हैज बीन पास्ड आल्सो, एंटी बॉयकॉट एक्ट. तो वो पैन इंडियन बेसिस पे आप इंप्लीमेंट कर दो कि जस्ट बिकॉज समबडी इज नॉट फॉलोइंग योर सोशल नॉर्म्स डज नॉट मीन दैट यू विल बॉयकॉट देम. इट डजंट वर्क लाइक दिस. सो एंटी बॉयकॉट एक्ट जो एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, दिस कैन बी पास्ड ऑन अ पैन इंडियन बेसिस. आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू अ सजेशन. सो हाउ कैन रेजिस्टर्स बी टैकल्ड? When you have the support of your government, when you have a support of your administration, when you know that if you have any grievance, you will be heard. आज की दिक्कत क्या है? Where should I go and tell that I have certain grievances? Whom? Media? Administration? Governance? Political leadership? Judiciary? Whom should I go and tell? And that is why I'll sit at my place and do nothing. Because I know even if I'm doing something right, I don't have the support. So automatically, somewhere deep down the line, the courage would be affected. But now if I know that if I am right, if I am honest, if I am truthful, then I have the support of these agencies. Automatically, I will have the courage to take the stand against those who are fringe elements in the society. Currently, why don't we have the courage? The problem is we don't have the support. Administration system is not robust. Grievance redressal mechanism does not even exist. Media is not ready to give the voice to the stakeholders. Judiciary in itself is working on their own whims and fancies. So where should we go for support? And that is why perceived behavioral control is missing. Nine. Arunava, that is not the work of the administrator. What I meant was you have to create such norms. Obviously, you can submit it to the political leadership that these are the changes which is required to be done, to be taken. और कहीं ना कहीं पॉलिसीज एग्जिस्ट करती हैं. बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ में ये सारी पॉलिसीज हैं, मेजर्स हैं. You have सुकन्या समृद्धि योजना, you have बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, you have आंगनवाड़ी which provides free contraceptives and everything. You have ASHA workers. The thing is that we already have policies if you read them clearly. The problem is the challenge at the level of implementation. So whichever things that we have mentioned, everything is there. You just need to implement. हमने कोई भी ऐसा suggestion नहीं दिया जो already exist नहीं करता हो. Already these suggestions are already existing. The problem lies in their implementation. And implementation is the job of the Absolutely, social media. But see, mostly क्या होता है ना यार, rural areas में social media would not work that much. But even then, Rahul, I'll take the suggestion. Obviously, information, education, communication campaigns में यही होता है. Social media is one of the example. Street play is one of the example. Radio can be used, one of the example. Community radios का concept. Community radio. Did you get the point? Clear hai? Did you understand how it, the more I'll teach you social influence and persuasion, the more clarity would be there. This is one way of writing the answer. This is not the only way. This is one way. There are other ways also. For example, now we'll start with social influence and you will learn how social influence tactics can be used, how persuasion can be used. Okay? So you don't need to worry about it. Yes, Sanket. Yeah, Bull-2 method. Anand, remember that, na? Very good. Yes, Bull-2 experiment that we have already discussed. Sanket, what you were saying? Perceived behavioral control. Acha. See, perceived behavioral control basically means to what extent your behavior is in your control. And that will happen only if you are a person of high self-efficacy and of internal locus of control. My behavior would not be determined by external factors. I have the confidence of controlling my own behavior. Right? So if I want to behave, if I want to fight against corruption, I will. I will not be bothered about the external factors. I will fight against the corruption. Why? Because I have confidence in my abilities. I have confidence that I can face all the challenges and the crisis on my own. I don't have to be dependent upon external factors. So that is the ability to control your own behavior. So if I want to fight corruption, I will. If I want to go for intercaste marriages, I will. If I have to raise voice against child marriage, I will. But how will you ensure that you create a society of such courageous people? How will I increase this perceived behavioral control? By creating an environment which promotes democratic governance, good governance, participative, consultative governance, where power distance is minimized, where grievance redressal mechanism is strong. So I will create a society where people have confidence in their ability to control their behavior. So they are the people of high self-efficacy and internal locus of control. Is that clear, Sanket? Is that clear? ठीक है, बोर्ड क्लीन कराइए. नहीं यार, break नहीं. आज I have to leave early, so I'll leave you in another, like by 4 o'clock. Today we will not have that question answer session at the end. That we'll have next time. I have to leave early, so I'll leave you at 4. So no break. Board clean कराइए जल्दी से. I'll start with a fresh topic. Sanket, did you understand now? Subjective norms, बच्चे प्रज्वल, subjective norms मतलब the norms which are existing in the society. I said subjective because there can be different norms. That is why the term subjective norms are used. Right? The norms of the society. What society has, the approach that society has towards that particular behavior. Clear hai? Prajwal, did you understand? Sanket, did you understand? We'll start with social influence. लो अच्छा चलो लो 2 मिनट का ब्रेक लो. Let's take a break. But I'll leave you at 4, so your choice. Let's take a break. चलो पानी वानी पी के आओ. We'll take 5 minutes break. social influence, background, concept, scholarly perspective, under scholarly perspective, French and Raven का perspective and Bib Latin का perspective. Very briefly I'll tell you. Then mechanism of social influence, conformity, compliance, obedience. Conformity I've written. What is conformity? What is conformity? Why do people tend to conform? Factors affecting conformity. What is compliance? Principles of compliance. Technique of compliance. Obedience. What is obedience? Why do people tend to obey? And destructive obedience. Bracket में I have written Stanley Milgram experiment. Stanley Milgram experiment. Stanley Milgram experiment. And then persuasion. Persuasion is one of the technique of social influence. One of the technique of social influence. Guys, I think from next batches, I will take emotional intelligence ka class as the first lecture. Because everyone out there has to control their emotions. Everyone out there. खुद सोचो, किसी के ब्रेक मांगने पर मैंने ब्रेक दिया, मुझे बोर्ड क्लीन कराना था. I agreed to the break because the other person can also relax if they want to, or any person who wants to relax. And by that time I made my flow chart. Why are you guys are discussing all of that there? Conserve your energy. कितना टाइम खोटी कर रहे हो तुम लोग वहां पे ये सब लिखने में? कुछ भी तुम लोग. Next time I'll teach emotional intelligence in the very first lecture. So now stop doing all of this and make this diagram. I hope everything is visible on the board. Fine. Sanket, can I discuss that at the end? I just have to finish first aspect. ठीक है? I'll discuss your query at the end. ठीक है? मुझे ये खत्म करने दो ना, please. ठीक? Background. See, social influence is very important these days, in fact. If you can understand, I'll get back to your query. निखिल हटाना नहीं इनकी query. ठीक है? See, the point here is that the background of social influence nowadays, as in social influence as a concept has become very important. I'll tell you how it works. आजकल YouTubers हैं ना, YouTube influencers, media influencers, आजकल ये terms चल गए हैं, and this has become very important because ultimately I want, suppose if I am into certain position, I want you guys to act according to my directions. How will I ensure that? I am the change agent, you are my target group. I just have to influence you. There are certain techniques of influencing. There are certain people who are very good influencer. They have immense fan following. और इस lockdown period में तो चांदी ही हो गई है लोगों की. So they have become that YouTube influencers or the media influencers, right? Someone was the beauty influencer, that Zomato case, whatsoever it was. So you have become influencers these days, right? So you have the ability to influence. So this concept of influencing other is known as social influence. And different techniques when media is used to influence, they are known as media influencers. When it is YouTube channel, so they are YouTube influencers. Are you getting the point how it works? The story started at the time of World War II. There was a social psychologist, his name was Carl Hovland. Carl, C-A-R-L, Carl Hovland, who was being contracted by US armed forces. And his job was to boost the morale of the soldiers of US armed forces to continue fighting against Japanese. Is that clear? And it was for the very first time when people actually started talking about social influence as an area of inquiry, as a subject of inquiry. And slowly and gradually, the grip of social influence and influencers have considerably increased in context of our society. In fact, today political parties, more than investing in their policies or in the development or in the infrastructure, they invest in these influencers, because ultimately it is these influencers which will enable them to win the elections. In fact, political parties recruit these social influencers as a part of their political campaigns in order to influence the target group, the citizens, to vote for them. Is that very clear? Is it clear? एक आया था ना कि अब की बार मोदी सरकार. So these slogans, these taglines, they work as social influence. अच्छे बीते 5 साल लगे रहो केजरीवाल. This is an example of social influence. Are you getting the point? So this is how is the power of social influence in the current context. So if you have to write about background, write down. Carl Hovland was contracted by US Armed Forces. Carl Hovland was contracted by US Armed Forces, to bolster the morale of the soldiers, to keep continuing fighting against Japan. After World War II, social influence has become, a very significant field of study. Full stop. Knowledge of social influence can help in changing people's attitude. Social influence can help in changing people's attitude, beliefs, actions, etc. Next, influence consultants are sought by political campaign managers to provide strategies. Yes, absolutely correct.
All the examples that you're giving is absolutely correct. Krishna influenced Arjun, or the star campaigners, or Amitabh Bachchan's caller tune at COVID times to influence and aware. Absolutely correct. To provide strategies, full stop. Example. Both the examples you can write. Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar or Achhe Beete 5 saal lage raho Kejriwal. Both the examples can be written in the political capacity. In fact, if you get any essay also in this context, these things can be referred. Clear hai? So what is social influence? What is the concept of social influence? Make this diagram, I'll explain. Just make this diagram. You have a change agent who makes the effort to change the attitude or perception or behavior of the target group in the desired direction. That is the process of social influence. And while carrying out that process of social influence, there are certain barriers which often needs to be overcome. For example, semantic barriers, psychological barriers, physical barriers. Have you made this? Can we proceed? Next, right? Social influence is described as change. Social influence is described as change in person's behavior, thought, feelings, attitude. Write down. Social influence is described as change in person's behavior, thought, feelings, attitude that results from interaction with other individuals in the society. Results from interaction with other individuals in the society. Full stop. Did you understand the background? Did you understand the concept? Yes, Ashutosh, social influencers can be misused for propaganda. Half of the YouTube influencers, they talk crap. Whichever way, whether they are fashion influencer or nutritionist, what they claim themselves to be, they talk crap without any factual or verifiable knowledge. But even then, they are influencing. I heard there is some influencer who has like mind-blowing following, and what he does is just vlogging every day. रोजमर्रे की कहानी कि आज बच्चे ने क्या किया, ये वो blah blah blah, and people are watching. I am surprised how vela time people have. But anyway, चलो, did you get the point? So this is how social influencing works. यहाँ तक हम clear है? Scholarly perspective. First, French and Raven. John French and Bertram Raven. It is just for your idea. आपको एग्जाम में फ्रेंच एंड राविन पे सवाल नहीं पूछेंगे, आपको बस थोड़ा बहुत पता होना चाहिए. फ्रेंच एंड राविन says that not necessarily always if you have to bring about change or social influence, it can be also done by usage of power. That is what French and Raven said. That if you have to bring about social influence, so it can also be done. अरे कैसे पता चला मैं इसी की बात कर रही हूँ? एक सेकेंड, I तो cannot take the name, but just one sec. हाँ, शोभिल, दीपक, exactly. What bakwas is happening, but even though, chalo, anyway. French and Raven. So French and Raven said if you have to bring about social influence, it can be done, right, by usage of power. And he said there are different types of power which can be used in order to bring about social influence. For example, reward power. For example, coercive power. For example, expert power. Legitimate, referent, and this is the latest addition, informational. ठीक है? Is that clear? So French and Raven basically said that the power, different types of power can be used to bring about social influence. And why am I telling you? I'll tell you this also. In the 15 minutes back, I gave you that diagram that if you have to bring about changes in the society, so I gave you attitude towards behavior or subjective norms or perceived behavioral control. That is one way of writing the answer depending upon what kind of question is asked. There is another question. How social influence can be used to implement Swachh Bharat mission. Let us say this is the question. So in that context, you can make use of this. That according to French and Raven, social influence can be brought about by usage of different types of power. For example, reward power, coercive power, expert power, legitimate power, referent power, and informational power. So there are different types of power which can be used to bring about social influence. Now, what I mean by reward power is, if I am an individual who has the power to offer you or to deny you certain rewards. So I can use that power, but I should have that power, right? So I should have the power where I am in a situation where either I can offer you or I can deny you certain rewards, and I will use that power of mine to influence your behavior. If you achieve 95% marks this time, I will give you a gift. The parents, they are using reward power because parents have that power. In case you do not behave in a certain manner, you will be grounded. Since you have behaved in a deviant manner, you will be grounded. So I have the power to either offer you or deny you rewards. So that is known as the reward power. सरकार के पास होती है ना, that if you have broken the traffic rules, then there would be a challan. Reward power, they have the authority. What are conditional cash transfers? Reward power. They have the authority. So I should have the power. So I should have the power to offer you और डिनाई यू. और जब मैं एक ही बात को 4 बार बोल रही हूं तो इसका मतलब है आई विल नॉट डिक्टेट, यू हैव टू राइट इट. So when I repeat the same thing thrice or 4 times, that means I'm expecting that you are making a note of it. So if you are in a position, if you have the power to offer or to deny reward, rewards can be anything, economic rewards, social rewards, anything, then that is usage of reward power. Example देख लो. The parents have the power of reward with respect to children. Traffic rules violation, again reward power. Coercive power. Use of muscle power. Goonism.
threatening you, creating a threat. So that is nothing but use of muscle power to influence. साम दाम दंड भेद, कुछ भी करेंगे. इलेक्शंस में नहीं होता है, if you will vote तो cash allowance, then they offer you liquor also, but when you don't listen then there is use of coercive power. So that is muscle power, goonism. ठीक है. use of threat, bahubali, absolutely shobal. Clear hai? Expert power. See, doctors do have a power, lawyers do have a power, scientists, they do have a ability to socially influence us. Why? Because they have the expertise. अब आप बोल रहे हो ना जी हमको तो बीमारी नहीं है, डॉक्टर बोल रहा है कि नहीं भैया सुनो, है तुमको, सुनोगे ना डॉक्टर की. लॉयर कह रहा है कि लीगल केस बन गया है भाई साहब, फीस दो, दोगे ना. They will be able to socially influence you. You have that doubt that might be these tests are not required to be done. But doctor has said, he has influenced you. And why did you get influenced by a doctor or by a lawyer or by a researcher or scientist? Because they do possess the expertise. Is that clear? Teachers. Clear hai? ठीक है. लेजिटिमेट पावर, लेजिटिमेसी होनी चाहिए टू रूल. पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स, जुडिशरी, दे हैव द लेजिटिमेसी. ठीक है ना. जहां पे मोनार्की होगी वहां पे किंग. सो दे हैव द लेजिटिमेसी. सो इट्स अ लेजिटिमेट पावर, अथॉरिटी कहते हैं इसे. ठीक है. So when you have the legitimacy to control others, so here you are listening to the judge, you are getting influenced by the judge. Why? Because they have the legitimacy to do that. If the government says something, you do tend to get influence. Obviously there are other factors also involved, but they do have the, so your MLAs, your MPs, they do have the legitimacy to have authority over us. The judges have the legitimacy to influence us. So sometimes you get influenced by others because they have the legitimate power to have authority over you. Is that very clear? ठीक है. Referent power. Referent power means charismatic personalities. और मुझे लगता है आजकल यही काम करता है. I have often seen a lot of teachers also. They might not have the expertise, but they have amazing charisma. So I have seen a lot of people, lot of leaders also. They don't have leadership quality, but they have amazing charisma. So many a times it is your charisma ultimately which helps in socially influencing others. Okay? So you might not have the expertise. You might not have other factors which are actually enabling you to socially influence others. It is your charismatic personalities. So the charisma of the person, the referent, for you that person is your reference group. Right? जब अमिताभ बच्चन said 2 बूंद जिंदगी के, actually polio got eradicated. So that was the power of Amitabh Bachchan, right? So that is nothing but charismatic personality. We do believe till date अच्छे दिन आएंगे. इतना ऑप्टिमिज्म किस देश में आपने देखा है कि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट हाईएस्ट रेट, जीडीपी ऑल टाइम लो, फर्स्ट टाइम रिसेशन, स्टिल वी आर सो होपफुल. दैट इज द पावर ऑफ कैरिस्मा. We do believe that अच्छे दिन आएंगे. Charismatic personality. So that is nothing but how you socially influence other by using the referent power. So that is the charismatic personality. Is that very clear? Ma'am, can good looks also attribute of charisma? Absolutely. Charisma can be with respect to anything. It can be your looks, it can be the way you talk, your communication skills, it can be your personality overall.
So charisma can be about anything. In fact, Weber says charismatic authority is the most irrational authority, because you tend to believe in the super abilities of the other person, which might be the other person doesn't even possess, but you believe. So the charisma of that person is not because of that person, it is because of the others who perceived that charisma. जैसे एक पर्टिकुलर लीडर आता है तो आपको लगता है उसके ऊपर एक हैलो बना हुआ है, वो हम अज्यूम कर रहे हैं ना, उसने ऐसा कुछ नहीं किया और ना वो बनाकर आया अपने ऊपर, बट वी हैव अज्यूम्ड. सो कैरिज्मेटिक अथॉरिटी इज द मोस्ट इरैशनल अथॉरिटी, बट इट इज अ वेरी पावरफुल अथॉरिटी. हिटलर में भी कैरिज्मा था, इंदिरा गांधी का भी कैरिज्मा था, ठीक है, दूसरी तरफ नेल्सन मंडेला का भी कैरिज्मा था, ठीक है. तो कैरिज्मेटिक पर्सनालिटीज कैन बी ड्यू टू एनी फैक्टर, ठीक. सो दैट इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट रेफरेंट पावर. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? ठीक है. ये अभी ऐड करा है फ्रेंच एंड रावन ने, मतलब दिस वाज द ओरिजिनल डिपिक्शन. इंफॉर्मेशनल इज मच लेटर. इंफॉर्मेशनल इज बेसिकली, हाउ शुड आई पुट इट, इंफॉर्मेशन ट्रेडिंग, that the other person has the information which you require. So in exchange of that information, you tend to get social influenced. So what I would suggest, that since this is an addition, in exam if you are writing, do not write this, because original interpretation was these only: referent power, legitimate power, expert power, coercive power, and the reward power. So do not write informational power. It was a later addition, and it basically says that you tend to get socially influenced by those who have the information which you want. For example, isko aap negative mein likh sakte ho, that you have important data which is required. So you can, trade that information. I'll give you this data and this is how you have to act. Social influence का मतलब तो यही है ना, that you have been able to convince the other person to act according to your dictats. So I will say that if you act in this manner, I will trade this data with you. I have important security data, national security data, information, intelligence I have. So if you behave in this manner, if you act like this, I will give you this information. So information trading. So ये हम usually नहीं लिखते हैं, और वैसे भी ये बहुत बाद का addition था, ठीक है. Is that very clear? Is that clear for everyone? Did you understand this? Very quickly एक last लिखो, bib Latin. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल कह सकते हैं. यस दीपक, वी कैन से दैट. सो डिपेंड करता है क्वेश्चन क्या है. मैंने आपको इसलिए बता दिया क्योंकि थ्योरेटिकल पर्सपेक्टिव है, एंड फ्रेंच एंड रावन हैज टॉक अबाउट दीज थिंग्स. आई हैव एक्सप्लेन्ड एवरीथिंग, ठीक है. नाउ डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द क्वेश्चन यू हैव टू यूज इट, ठीक है. नाउ आई एम गिविंग यू अ टास्क. हाउ विल यू यूज दीज पावर्स टू इंप्लीमेंट स्वच्छ भारत मिशन? कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस करोगे स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के लिए? Or I have told you, you have to use it like this. How will you do that? Think about it. This would be your home assignment. नहीं नहीं, डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर्स नहीं होगा. नहीं, किस लिए? नहीं 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 नहीं. ठीक है. नहीं यार आकांक्षा, इंफॉर्मेशन उस तरह से नहीं है, एक्सपर्ट वाली इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं है. यहां पे इंफॉर्मेशन है, let us put it this way, the teacher has the question papers. So if you want the question papers, then you have to attend my personal classes. That is informational. ठीक है. So आकांक्षा, अगर इंफॉर्मेशन सेम एज एक्सपर्ट होता तो एक ही बंदे ने ये दोनों चीजें अलग अलग क्यों दी होती? So आकांक्षा, this is, see, I'll tell you why. Just listen carefully. I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, WhatsApp privacy issue, ये आप बिल्कुल डाल सकते हो. Exchanging the data जो आजकल हो रहा है, ठीक है, the data is getting shared with everyone, so your privacy is getting hampered. That we can say. Quid pro quo, I'll take that word. Spying, absolutely. This is, you need to understand. Listen carefully, everyone out there. Do you realize that why do I always mention a particular thinker if I am telling you a concept here? Usually I do that because you need to understand that every thinker has given a concept in a particular capacity and I cannot change it. So even if I personally believe that something is overlapping, I would not say that, बिकॉज थिंकर का वो पर्सपेक्टिव नहीं है जब उन्होंने दिया. थिंकर का मतलब इंफॉर्मेशनल से यही था दैट यू हैव सर्टन इंफॉर्मेशन विच आई रिक्वायर, सो यू आर ट्रेडिंग दैट. क्विड प्रो क्यो इज द वर्ड, that you behave according to my desired actions or my desired conduct, and I will be providing you this information. It has to be understood in this capacity only, nothing zyada, nothing kam, क्योंकि ये थिंकर का पर्सपेक्टिव है और उसको इसी तरीके से समझना है. क्लियर है? ठीक. बिब लैटिन, राइट डाउन. According to him, the idea of, according to him, नहीं, going to Babas is because of the referent power, charismatic personalities. It is not because of the information power. नहीं Tanushree, it is because of the charismatic. Idea that conforming to social influence depends upon, according to Bib Latin, conforming to social influence depends upon, first, the social status of the group, the social status of the group trying to influence us, the status, the social status of the group trying to influence us. Second, number of people in that group, number of people in that group, number of people in that group. And third, the physical and psychological proximity with the group. Physical and psychological proximity with the group. क्लियर है? पुलकित, फाइन वाला भी रिवॉर्ड में ही जाएगा. कोएर्सिव का मतलब ही होता है थ्रेट, मसल पावर, इलेजिटिमेट पावर. फाइन जरूरी नहीं है कि इलेजिटिमेट हो. अगर लेजिटिमेट सोर्सेज इंपोज कर रहे हैं तो फाइन इज नॉट कोएर्सिव. फाइन इज अ प्रोसेस ऑफ कंडीशनिंग यू थ्रू रिवॉर्ड्स एंड पनिशमेंट. सो फाइन वुड बी अ पार्ट ऑफ रिवॉर्ड. कोएर्सिव इज यूजिंग थ्रेट, यूजिंग मसल पावर, गूनिज्म. रेस्ट इज फाइन. ठीक है? सो मोर और लेस यू हैव अंडरस्टूड हाउ इट हैज टू बी डन. ठीक है? Is that clear? So is Bib Latin's perspective clear? This I'll discuss more in detail when I'm discussing social influence, when I'm discussing conformity with you. So Bib Latin I'll discuss there, that not only individual tries to socially influence us, even the groups try to socially influence us. So Bib Latin says that what are the reasons which will govern the fact that the group will be able to influence us? So it depends upon the social status of the group. The higher the status, the stronger would be the social influence. It also depends upon the number of people in the group. If there are more number of people, the chances of social influence would be high. And how proximity is there? What kind of proximity is there? Both in terms of physical proximity as well as psychological proximity. How emotionally I am connected with the group. The higher the psychological proximity, the stronger would be the social influence. Is that clear? अरे बुल्टू मेथड में कई बार खुशी बता चुकी हूं. अरे वो नहीं हुआ था ट्राइबल. ओके, बाय द वे आई एम कंक्लूडिंग द लेक्चर. देयर आर जस्ट 2 डाउट्स. लेट मी टेक दैट वेरी क्विकली. So Khushi, Bultu experiment was the experiment which was carried out by an IS officer in context of tribal community. So basically, once he went and there were certain students sitting out there, and they were using, they were fiddling with their phone. So basically, the IS officer thought कि क्या कर रहे हैं? तो उन्होंने बोला हम बुल्टू कर रहे हैं. तो काफी देर तक समझ नहीं आया what exactly he meant. So basically, what he was, the kids were trying to tell him was, हम Bluetooth use कर रहे हैं for exchange of information through mobile. So then he understood that Bluetooth technology can be used to provide government schemes in the language which can be understood
by the tribal people. So from there the experiment came to be known as bull 2 experiment. क्योंकि बच्चे ब्लूटूथ बोल नहीं पाते थे, वो बुल 2 बोलते थे, तो वहां से बुल 2 नाम आ गया. तो ये एक एग्जाम्पल था बस खुशी. Okay, so Sanket, we have legitimate power. Judiciary has a legitimate power. The government has a legitimate power. IAS officers have a legitimate power. Police officers have legitimate power. So they have the legitimate power. So that's the example. They have the authority, legitimate authority. Okay, Sanket, we have a question here. Ashish, we'll discuss this quote later. Okay. So, Sanket, ma'am, sometimes weaker group are at numerical disadvantage. Okay. And most people would be negatively disposed towards their empowerment. Okay. So, therefore, finding facilitator would be more challenging. Okay. So, how can one reduce tension in this extreme situation if threat is more immediate? संकेत यूजुअली तो ऐसा होता नहीं है, एक ना एक बंदा तो मिल ही जाता है टू ब्रिंग अबाउट द चेंज, और लेट अस से हमें नहीं मिला, तो दीज आर द पावर्स विच कैन बी यूज्ड. आई टोल्ड यू ना, सोशल इन्फ्लुएंस लाने का एक ही तरीका नहीं है. टू ब्रिंग अबाउट द चेंज देयर कैन बी डिफरेंट मेथड्स. इन द नेक्स्ट लेक्चर्स वी विल स्टडी अबाउट परसुएशन ऑल्सो. सो यूजुअली ऐसा होगा नहीं, यू विल ऑलवेज फाइंड. ऐसा तो है नहीं यार कि अच्छे लोगों की इतनी कमी हो गई है देश में, कहीं ना कहीं तो मिल ही जाएंगे. ठीक है, और अगर नहीं भी होता है तो यू कैन start with the initiative. For example, there is a very famous IAS officer, if I'm not wrong, his name is Pankaj Jain. Shayad. So what he did was that instead of sending his daughter, his child to the private school, which he could have done, he sent his daughter to the Anganwadi. Because already he has worked on the context of improving the government education and the infrastructure, and he set the example by walking the talk. An IAS officer has all the avenues to send their children to private schools. बहुत आसानी से admission भी मिल जाएगा. But even then he chose to send his child to the government Anganwadi center for preschool education. Are you getting the point? Right? So if you cannot look for someone else, you can walk the talk. For example, there was a case study in UPSC that midday meal was cooked by a Dalit cook, and the children of the upper caste, they refused to consume the food because it was cooked by a Dalit cook. So the IAS officer of that area belonging to the upper caste community, he sat on the floor with the kids of the lower caste and consumed the food which was made by the Dalit cook. So when you don't find others, then start the example from your end, walking the talk. Did you get the point? Is that clear? ठीक है, ये सारे examples ढूंढो और IAS ऑफिसर्स मिलेंगे जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है. Look for these examples. This will help you in your essay writing also, and this will help you in your ethics writing also. ठीक है, पंकज जैन ही है ना नाम? ठीक है. So did you get the point? I think more or less you have understood these examples. So on this note, we will conclude आज का lecture. I have given you one UPSC question that would be your assignment question. Right? And I gave you that family planning wala. Try to write it properly and try to attempt this question: how social influence will be used for successful implementation of Swachh Bharat mission. Again, that is a UPSC question. UPSC question hai that how social influence can be used for successful implementation of Swachh Bharat mission. That can be a self-test question. Try to attempt these questions. Is that clear? ठीक है? So on this note, we will conclude the lecture. ठीक है, एक और इंसिडेंट बताती हूँ क्योंकि एग्जाम्पल्स लिखने में काम आ सकता है. देयर वाज अ डिस्ट्रिक्ट एंड वहाँ पे इन्हें सैनिटेशन प्रमोट करना था स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के लिए, एंड ओपन डेफिकेशन प्रिवेंट करना था. तो व्हाट द डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट डिड, ही डिवाइडेड द चिल्ड्रंस ग्रुप इनटू वन साइड ऑल द गर्ल चाइल्ड एंड ऑन द अदर साइड ऑल द बॉय चिल्ड्रन, एंड द नेम ऑफ द ग्रुप ऑफ द बॉय चिल्ड्रन वाज सुभाष चंद्र बोस, एंड द गर्ल चाइल्ड, द नेम ऑफ द ग्रुप वाज रानी लक्ष्मीबाई ग्रुप. Are you getting that? To develop that revolutionary fervor. So one was Subhash Chandra Bose, other was Rani Lakshmi Bai, and their duty was, if you seen anyone defecating in the open, you have to keep blowing the whistle till the person doesn't stop doing that, right? So उनके लिए, बच्चों के लिए fun था, and for other members, the elders, it was such an embarrassing moment that if you are defecating in open, the children, obviously the group would always be there, and they started blowing the whistle, and they kept on blowing the whistle until and unless you stop that practice. So slowly and gradually in that area, the practice came to an end. Is that clear? I'm yet not able to recall which exact डिस्ट्रिक्ट इज नेक्स्ट क्लास में मैं ढूंढ के एग्जैक्टली याद करके बताऊंगी कि कहाँ का एग्जाम्पल है, बट ये एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एग्जाम्पल था और ये इसको भी आप यूज कर सकते हो टू चेंज द बिहेवियर ऑफ द अदर person. So this is how the examples of real life can be used in order to put forward your arguments. Is that clear? ठीक है. So as far as classes are concerned, one more class for attitude, one class for emotional intelligence. I will be requiring 4 more classes. Moral thinkers भी है. तो 4 more classes and that it would be over. But I think मेरे साथ दूसरी फैकल्टी की भी क्लास अब स्टार्ट कर देंगे, क्योंकि अब आपको एक बेसिक आइडिया तो लग ही गया है, एथिक्स, एटीट्यूड, वैल्यूज. इनफैक्ट नेक्स्ट 2 क्लासेस आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो उसमें इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस, एटीट्यूड में परसुएशन वगैरह, तो नेक्स्ट 2 क्लासेस आर इंपॉर्टेंट. उसके बाद मॉरल थिंकर्स वगैरह है, वो आप बाद में भी देख सकते हो, उसका कोई इतना इशू नहीं है. ठीक है. इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? तो 2 more urgent important classes and after that 2 more classes, but वो moral thinkers पर है, वो आप देख सकते हो जब भी आपके पास टाइम होगा. So those who are writing their prelims this year, next 2 classes attend कर लेना, उसके बाद अपनी prelims की तैयारी करो. ठीक है. So on this note I conclude. ठीक. Take care people.